Welcome back to A Closer Look if you're just joining us. My special guest today is Chris McCARTT. He's the Kingsport City Manager. We've been talking all things Kingsport, and we were just talking about the Brickyard Park and all the things going on there. And let's continue that. Tell me a little bit about what's going on with the residential plans.
Sure. So one of the things that we have looked at really for quite some time is how do we increase the amount of the available property for residential development downtown. There's been a tremendous amount of interest in that. Town Park Lofts has been extremely successful. The desire for second-story lofts has been really for over a decade now in downtown. And so one of the things that we stepped back and looked at several years ago was this idea of creating some residential development on the Brickyard Park property. When we initially purchased that, a lot of focus, and this has been 15, 16 years ago, was really kind of towards industrial development. But we've really since then kind of pushed away from that and looked at residential development. So one of the quadrants that we have identified is about 25 to 30 acres of land. And we are presently working on a request for proposals that the Economic Development Board will place an ad out here very soon. We anticipate that to be sometime during the first quarter of 21. That will advertise that for potential developers to buy the property and develop it for residential development. Some of the modeling we've seen could result in 100 to 125 residential units. And we often talk about creating magnets and things that draw people into downtown when nothing draws you more than your own home. And so we really believe that that will help further stimulate the economic development and redevelopment that we're seeing within our downtown. So that's something we're excited. That's something that we hope folks will see happening really as we move through the first quarter of this year, getting that ad out, going through the process of selecting a developer, selling that property to them, and then hopefully at some point in 21 beginning to see some actual development taking place.
Well, that's exciting for me because, as you know, I live downtown, so I'd like to see things like that help move it forward. So that's fantastic. Now, another thing happening downtown is the new City Hall building.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we are very excited to be moving in there on Broad Street across from the library. This is a project that has been several years in the making. It's one of those things that has also been affected by COVID. We had hoped to move in to that about this time, but we've just had several delays, primarily through the folks working on the project as a result of COVID. Individuals that are working over there will have to be quarantined, and that will result in the crew being quarantined. So we're hopeful again sometime in the first quarter of this year to be able to move in over there. The building is coming along very nicely. This is going to be a facility that the citizens of Kingsport will be very, very proud of. We'll also be able to streamline a lot of our operations with a one-stop shop by consolidating many of the properties that are either downtown or outside of our downtown into one facility. And then those properties will be able to go back on the tax roll. So that's something that we're also pleased with and excited about as well. But yeah, that's a great project. It's about 70,000 square feet. Floors 3 through 6 are completely done. We're in the process of finishing out floors 1 and 2, making some improvements to the elevators, and also getting in some of the last little bits of things, getting the Board of Mayor and Alderman room set up so that we can televise meetings there, and doing some final touches with our IT and those kinds of things. So we're getting very close, and I'm excited to be able to really unveil that great project to the city. This is something that's been a long time in the making.
Are there going to be any other businesses in that building with y'all?
No, this will be solely set up for city government.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
What's going to happen with the old building? Are there any plans?
Well,
for that?
we have 3 buildings that we're looking at moving through a process that will ultimately put them back on the tax rolls. The first one is the building on Midland, the old health department building there where our legal and risk management offices are, as well as our city clinic is there as well. They'll be moving into the new building, and then that building will eventually be sold, and we anticipate there will be quite a bit of interest from just the surrounding property owners. Downtown, the improvement building, probably one of the oldest buildings in Kingsport. That's where J. Fred Johnson, John B. Dennis had their offices. That's where the plans for Kingsport as we know it today were laid out and implemented. That building is very special to us, very special to the history of the city. While we do intend to put it up for sale, we'll also want to make sure that we're very careful with what the future use of that will be. So we'll have some restrictions as to what exactly could happen there. And then in time, probably one of the last ones that will come back onto the tax rolls is our present City Hall. And what we're doing there and the delay with that is that we'll have to make some significant modifications to the Justice Center to accommodate the courtrooms that will need to move into that, and some of the county offices that are in City Hall that will move over, that support the court system, that will move over into the new Justice Center. So it's probably a couple years away, but the other two, the improvement building, the Midland building, both of those, sometime in 21 will be moving into private hands.
Very good. Let's talk about the CARES Act. How's that helped Kingsport?
It really has helped us in a lot of ways. You know, when we look at the various programs, it's really probably three primary areas. The first, significant amount of money was sent to the Federal Transit Administration, which then funneled down to the Kingsport Area Transit Service. And really the goal there was to begin putting in place resources to help the transit agency really look at ways they can provide the type of service they're providing, but with the reality that, like so many things, as we come out of the pandemic, the world is going to look a little different, and public transit is one of those. So looking at how we move more to demand response, but also providing funding for vehicle replacement that's fully funded by the federal government. That way the city match will not be required, and that's just another way the government's realizing that the revenues may not be what some of the cities have anticipated. We've also received money through the Community Development Block Grant. These dollars are specifically geared towards low income, and so we've been able to provide funding to food banks. Second Harvest Food Bank has received a fairly sizable grant from the city. We've also been able to place some of that money towards homeless shelters, whether that's through providing them with cleaning supplies, PPE, or to, in some situations, provide temporary housing for the homeless community. We've been able to do that through those funds. And then the third area has been money that has come in through both the state as well as through the federal government, money funneled in through the CARES Act for public safety. That has been able to provide, again, PPE, but also to be able to provide funding, recognizing that in some situations we've had individuals quarantined, so we've seen an increase in overtime and that burden on the budget, so that's been able to help offset that. So those are the dollars we've received. Outside of City Hall, the school system has received dollars. There's been other community agencies that have received dollars as well. Probably the biggest thing has been the Paycheck Protection Plan. While that didn't come through City Hall, that was something that was made available, and that's been very beneficial, as well as the funding that has been in place for you know, just individuals that have been out of work. So the program's been good in the intent that it had to try to funnel money in to support the local economy.
And speaking of the local economy, there's a lot of people moving into Kingsport these days. I mean, more than ever. What's that all about?
You know, a lot of that is, I think, geared kind of towards the pandemic. You're seeing folks in larger metropolitan areas experience the shutdowns that have occurred and have said, you know, this is not something that I want to do. You also are seeing individuals who have the ability really to work from anywhere.
Yes.
And so access to an airport, access to high-speed internet, those are the things that they're interested in. We've done an outstanding job. Jeff Fleming really gets a tremendous amount of credit for this and the Move to Kingsport program. He's done a great job. Our big issue right now is housing inventory, and that's why you've seen City Hall really push for a lot of a lot of stuff, a lot of programs centered around new housing construction, a lot of programs centered around just streamlining the housing process to allow whether it's housing redevelopment or new construction to take place. And so we continue to kind of look for that $200,000 to $300,000 home. That is the sweet spot in our city right now.
That's such a nice problem to have, isn't it? I love this. And you know, it has been the year of remote work. So people have learned that they can work from anywhere. Why not go to a town that's got pretty good tax base and it's a good place to live and it's beautiful? So I think that's excellent. It
is. It's been great. You know, we had a story the other day from a couple that are moving here from California, and I could tell you countless stories of California, New York, Michigan, Florida, just looking to come here.
I believe it. Now I want to talk a little bit about From the Desk with Chris McCARTT. Tell me about your podcast.
You know, one of the things we've always said is the closest form of government is local government. And so it was really a major initiative of mine when I became city manager a year and a half ago, was to figure out ways to communicate what's going on inside City Hall to the public. And we realized that sometimes people won't open the newspaper. They don't have time to open the newspaper. They may not be able to check the evening news. And so just to be able to twice a month kind of go over some of the things that we're doing in terms of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and their agendas, what's being brought before them, whether it's through a presentation or they're actually taking action on an item. And then also we try each month to kind of do a deeper dive, and so we'll have an interview with maybe an employee that we're highlighting as one of our heroes that we're highlighting for that quarter or that month, or to talk to a nonprofit about the work that they're doing. So it's a great way to connect. Each episode's about 20 to 30 minutes, and however you download your podcast, whether you're on the Apple system or you're on Android, you can find that podcast there. You can also find information at kingsport10.gov.
And so again, it's called From the Desk.
Right. From the city desk.
From the city desk.
Yeah, from the city desk.
With Chris McCARTT, right?
That's right.
Okay, so we can download that, and you guys have two episodes a week?
2 episodes a month.
2 episodes a month?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad I clarified that.
That's right.
So I'll have to download that, because that's a really easy way for people to keep up to date with what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's kind of a neat way. You can do it at your own leisure. That's fantastic. Chris, thank you so much for being with us today. I've learned so much, and it's good to keep up with everything going on in our fine city. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll be back this time next week with another edition of A Closer Look. We'll see you then.